Let's take a turn now to some international news. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son of the former Philippines dictator by the same name, has declared victory. Unofficial results put him on track to win in a landslide against the country's current vice president. Maria Ressa is the CEO of the independent news site Rappler. She's also the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize winner. Hi, Ms. Ressa. Good to meet you. Good to have you on our program. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Right before we started, I was reading an article that sort of, I guess, tried to characterize what the winner of this election, the declared winner of this election, was saying about his past, and saying to the world, basically, don't judge me by my family's actions, judge me by what I'm going to do going forward. Is there a clear separation, a demarcation between this politician and his father?
I think they are intertwined precisely because he campaigned based on his father's track record. And I put that in quotes because history books are very clear. And then the second thing is, this is a man who does have a track record, right? He is 64 years old. So we know, for example, one of the pressing questions is, he has a standing contempt order in the United States. What will that mean now that he is presumptive president, right? And will he then now be allowed to travel to the United States? The assumption, of course, is that he is, because a democratically elected state is treated as a head of state by the United States government.
Can you talk a little bit about the political climate in the Philippines right now, and what you think is behind his win?
I think and I've said this repeatedly, it almost feels like a broken record for almost 6 years. This country shows you the impact of disinformation, which, you know, if you're outside, I mean, Canada sees this as well. Canada knows this firsthand. Real world violence is caused partly by social media, by virtual violence. Well, that's the same politically. We have had years of information operations by Marcos and Duterte systems, right? And we'll call them networks. Rappler has unveiled a lot of this as early as 2014. Those were when the first accounts we saw starting to burnish the image of the Marcoses. They were ready for the 2016 vice presidential elections, which he didn't win. He lost by a small margin, 200,000 to the vice president, Leni Robredo, now the woman who challenged him for the presidency. And then in the 2019 elections, again, an outpouring of lies on social media, where by design, these lies actually get greater distribution than facts. That has helped cut down and in plain view change the history of the Philippines in front of our eyes. I warn repeatedly that what happens to us isn't going to stay in the Philippines. This is a systematic breakdown of democracy because our information ecosystem is corrupted.
Not only have you made the point, but I mean, you're one of the foremost kind of experts on this. You've spoken at length, and you've suffered greatly for it as well in the Philippines. You're facing the potential of going to jail. Can you tell our audience, some of whom may not be familiar with the status of that, where things are at, and why you're facing that?
It's the weaponization of social media in 2016 was followed very closely by the weaponization of the law. Starting in 2019, I just kept getting arrest warrants. So the Philippine government under Duterte filed 10 arrest warrants against me. And there's still 7 existing criminal cases. Every time I need to travel outside the Philippines, I need to wait for court approvals. And sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. I think more than anything, the question really is, will rule of law survive as we move into a Marcos administration? You know, this is an administration that is going to have to go after the Marcos wealth. Will they do that? Will this administration do that? One. And the second is the systematic shift of the Marcos name doesn't happen domestically only. In February 2020, Facebook announced that it took down information operations from China that were effectively polishing the image of the Marcoses. Those same networks were attacking me, Rappler, and other journalists in the Philippines as well.
Can I ask you, just before I let you go, what role you think other countries play in this? And I know, obviously, diplomacy is what it is, but but I'm thinking, for example, of people watching right now in Canada who are wondering what kind of posture their own government will take towards this new one in the Philippines, or even the ones previous. What is your anticipation about that, and what is your hope?
I hope, let me start with the hope. I hope that governments around the world does not take this as business as usual. Nothing that is happening this year is business as usual. You know, there are more than 30 elections just this year alone. Those elections, if we lose them, if democracy loses these elections, then you will wind up tipping the world further into, and I don't use this word lightly, into fascism. We have been here before. And if we accept these, again, this is the death by 1,000 cuts of our democracy. I think I'll just end with just this one thing. You know, Canada is not immune. This is a global problem. And the biggest problem, of course, is in Germany, in Russia. The last time we were here, leading up to World War II, these leaders were also democratically elected. And once they took control, they crumbled democracy, the institutions from within. We have seen this happen repeatedly over the last 6 years. In 2016, the Philippines was the first domino to fall, followed like a little more than a month later by Brexit. Then you had the election of Trump, Jair Bolsonaro. Well, here we go again. This time, this year, in October, Brazil has elections. The United States has elections. The biggest question that we have really is, how can you have integrity of elections if you don't have integrity of facts? We have a lot to do to fix our world. The first is really guardrails around the tech, help independent journalism survive, and protect our communities. I'll end with this Milan Kundera quote that has just kept running through my head. The struggle of man against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting.
That's as good a point as any to leave it on. Thank you, Ms. Ressa. Thanks for making the time for this.
Thanks for having me.
Wish you the best. Maria Ressa is the CEO of the independent news site Rappler. She's also the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize winner. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.